You know what's fascinating? The moment you stop caring about your avoidant ex, the power dynamic flips. Not because you're playing games, but because you finally reclaim yourself. When you've been in a relationship with someone avoidant, you've probably felt like you were doing emotional gymnastics, chasing connection, decoding mixed signals, and constantly questioning if you were enough. You pour in more, they pull away more. It's exhausting. But here's the truth: the second you decide, I'm done carrying this weight, something shifts. You stop sending those just checking in texts. You stop analyzing their social media. You stop bending yourself into someone else's shape just to keep the peace. And you start investing that same energy back into you. Suddenly, your life gets louder in color. Your boundaries tighten. Your self-respect grows roots. You wake up one day and realize, wow, I don't even care what they think anymore. What happens next? You stop obsessing about their next move, and your anxiety drops like a rock. Your confidence quietly walks back into the room. You stop seeing their silence as rejection and start seeing it as space for something better. And here's the kicker: sometimes, when you stop caring, they notice. The texts might roll in, the calls might come, but by then you've leveled up so much, you don't even feel that old pull anymore. You're no longer trapped in their push-pull cycle. You're standing in your own lane, looking forward. You've taken the most powerful step you could ever take. You chose yourself. When you stop caring about your avoidant ex, you take back your power and your peace in ways you may not even see coming at first. For so long, your energy was tied to their behavior, their moods, and their willingness to engage. Your self-worth might have been subtly or even blatantly linked to how much affection or attention they decided to give you. Every text left unanswered could ruin your day. Every mixed signal could spiral you into overthinking. And every brief moment of closeness could feel like a lifeline you were desperate to hold on to. Without realizing it, you handed them the keys to your emotional state. They didn't just have space in your life. They had space in your mind and your nervous system. The shift begins when you finally say enough. Not out of anger, not even necessarily out of closure, but from sheer exhaustion of being in a constant state of emotional waiting. That's the moment you start taking back your power. It's when you stop rearranging your life for someone who can't even meet you halfway. You stop putting their needs ahead of your own. And something remarkable happens: your peace, which has been sitting quietly in the corner waiting for you to notice it, begins to take center stage. Taking back your power doesn't mean you're suddenly cold, bitter, or incapable of caring about anyone ever again. It means you are no longer volunteering for a role that drains you. You stop auditioning for their love and start showing up fully in your own life. That might mean setting boundaries and actually keeping them. It might mean saying no to last-minute hangouts that only happen when it's convenient for them. It might even mean deleting their number, not as a dramatic statement, but because you genuinely don't want to break your own peace by reopening a door you've worked hard to close. The truth is, the avoidant dynamic thrives on imbalance. One person giving more, the other retreating into distance. When you remove yourself from that pattern, you're disrupting the script entirely. You're no longer responding to their hot and cold behavior, so they lose the ability to dictate how you feel from day to day. That is power. And with that power comes peace, because you're not on emotional call anymore. You get to decide how your day feels, not their lack of response or their sporadic affection. You'll also notice that once you stop caring in that obsessive, overinvested way, your body relaxes, your sleep improves, your shoulders drop, you laugh more easily. You're not carrying the invisible weight of wondering if you're too much or not enough for someone who couldn't even meet you where you were. That's the liberation you've been craving, not necessarily freedom from them, but freedom from the constant state of proving yourself. And perhaps the most beautiful part, your peace becomes non-negotiable. Once you've felt what it's like to live without the emotional chaos, you won't want to go back. That's the real win. And that's why taking back your power and your peace starts with one decision: to stop caring in the way that costs you yourself. When you stop chasing your avoidant ex, the energy you once spent on them doesn't just vanish. It comes back to you, and it becomes one of the most valuable resources you've ever had. For a long time, you might have felt like all your emotional energy was leaking out in one direction. You were constantly checking your phone, replaying conversations, wondering if you said too much or not enough, and adjusting your behavior to keep them from pulling away. Every ounce of that mental, emotional, and even physical effort was going into maintaining a connection that never seemed to meet you halfway. When you finally step out of that cycle, it's like pulling your hand away from a faucet that's been dripping into someone else's cup. All that water, your love, your time, your attention, your emotional bandwidth, begins to fill your own again. At first, it might feel strange. You're so used to measuring your worth by how much they respond to you that you don't immediately know what to do with all that extra space in your mind. But soon, you start realizing how much you've been neglecting parts of yourself. You remember hobbies you abandoned because you didn't have the time or emotional clarity for them. You start saying yes to opportunities without wondering if they'll get in the way of your relationship. You begin to show up more fully for your friends and family, and for yourself. That Friday night you used to spend waiting for their text, Now it's spent with people who actually want to see you, or doing something that lights you up. There's a deep satisfaction in realizing you no longer need to pour all your best into a person who couldn't hold it. You begin to channel that same passion into your goals, your personal growth, and your self-care. The gym sessions you skipped because you were drained, they're back on the schedule. The business idea you pushed aside because you were too consumed with relationship drama, you start mapping it out. Your life starts to feel like yours again, not a side project to someone else's avoidance. And here's the beautiful twist: the more you invest in yourself, the more attractive your life becomes. You're no longer showing up as the person who is waiting to be chosen. You're already chosen by you. That confidence radiates in ways you can't fake. It's not about proving a point to them. It's about proving to yourself that you can live fully without anyone else's permission. The truth is, chasing an avoidant partner drains you because it's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in it. No matter how much you give, it will never feel like enough. But when you take that same effort and pour it into yourself, you see results. You feel them. Your energy multiplies because it's finally being used in a place where it can grow, in your own life for your own good. And that's when you realize you haven't just stopped caring about them. You've started deeply caring about you. When you've been caught in the push and pull of an avoidant relationship, their silence can feel like the loudest rejection in the world. Every unanswered message, every canceled plan, every sudden emotional wall can trigger that deep, sinking feeling in your chest that whispers, "You're not wanted. You're not enough." You start to attach meaning to their absence, assuming it's a reflection of your worth, and that belief can eat away at your confidence one small piece at a time. It's exhausting to live in that state, waiting for their validation to quiet the noise in your head. But the moment you stop caring in that old way, something begins to shift. Their silence doesn't sting the same way anymore because you've redefined what it means. Instead of reading it as a verdict on who you are, you start seeing it for what it really is: space. Space that can be used for your healing, for your growth, and for your happiness. Space that you get to fill with your own life instead of waiting for them to occupy it. This change doesn't happen overnight. At first, you might still feel the old urge to check your phone, to wonder why they haven't reached out. But with time, you realize that silence is not always rejection. Sometimes it's protection. It's the pause you need to remember who you were before their presence began to dictate your emotional weather. It's the breathing room you didn't know you needed to reconnect with yourself without their patterns constantly pulling you off balance. Soon, their lack of communication stops being an emergency in your mind. You don't rearrange your day around the possibility of hearing from them. You stop writing emotional essays in your head about why they haven't called. That mental energy, once tangled up in worry, starts to flow toward more productive, nourishing places. You begin to notice how much lighter your days feel when they're not controlled by someone else's inconsistency. The most empowering part is that the same space that used to hurt now starts to feel like freedom. You're no longer trapped in the loop of, "What did I do wrong? And how can I fix this?" Instead, you're asking, "What do I want to do with this time? How can I make my life fuller today?" And when that becomes your focus, you realize their absence is not a void. It's an opening. That's when you stop fearing the silence and start welcoming it. Because in that silence, you hear your own voice again. You remember what it feels like to move through the world without tiptoeing around someone else's discomfort with closeness. And once you've experienced that, you stop longing for their attention and start craving more of your own peace. The space that once felt like punishment transforms into the very thing that sets you free. When you've been involved with someone avoidant, you often find yourself shrinking in ways you don't even notice at first. You start softening your words so you don't scare them off. You hold back your real needs because you don't want to seem too demanding. You start editing your personality, your desires, and even your dreams to fit into the narrow comfort zone they've built for themselves. And for a while, you convince yourself this is compromise when in reality, it's self-erasure. Every time you bend just a little more, you chip away at your own sense of identity and worth. The thing about constantly adjusting to keep someone else comfortable is that it trains you to disconnect from your own truth. You forget what it feels like to say exactly what's on your mind without fear of being abandoned. You forget the joy of being fully, unapologetically yourself. Over time, this constant bending leaves you exhausted, anxious, and disconnected from your own center. It's like you're walking on a tightrope, carefully balancing between who you are and who you think they need you to be. And the effort of that balancing act drains your confidence until it's barely recognizable. But when you finally stop caring about winning back their attention or approval, something powerful happens. You straighten up. You stop contorting yourself to fit into a relationship dynamic that never felt secure to begin with. You stop apologizing for having needs, feelings, and boundaries. And slowly, almost without realizing it, your confidence starts to walk back into the room. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It slips in quietly, like an old friend you thought you'd lost. You start speaking up again, not because you want to provoke them, but because your voice matters to you now. You make choices based on what feels right for you, not on how they might react. You wear what you want, say what you mean, and go where you please, and the world doesn't collapse when you do. Each time you choose authenticity over appeasement, your confidence takes another step forward. What's remarkable is that this confidence doesn't depend on whether they stay or go. It's not about proving anything to them. It's about proving something to yourself, that you are whole and worthy without needing to twist yourself into someone else's idea of easy to love. And as that confidence grows, so does your peace. You're no longer walking on eggshells, you're walking on solid ground of your own making. It's in that grounded state that you realize something profound: the right people won't require you to shrink. The right people will meet you where you are, not where they feel safest. And once you've tasted the relief and strength that comes from standing tall in your own truth, you will never again be willing to bend yourself out of shape just to fit inside someone else's walls. Choosing yourself after being tangled up with an avoidant ex is more than just a decision. It's a declaration. For so long, you've been caught in a cycle where their behavior dictated your emotional state. You waited for their attention like it was oxygen, and when you didn't get it, you scrambled to earn it back. It was a constant loop of trying to fix, trying to prove, trying to be enough for someone who never seemed ready to truly meet you. That cycle can feel like quicksand. The more you struggle in it, the deeper you sink. But the moment you choose yourself, the rules change. You're no longer waiting for them to decide if you're worthy of love and effort. You take that decision back into your own hands. You stop asking, will they come around? And start asking, what do I actually want from my life? That subtle but powerful shift breaks the emotional dependency that kept you tethered to their inconsistency. It's not that you stop caring overnight. It's that you stop prioritizing their comfort over your own well-being. Choosing yourself means you walk away from the constant push and pull, even when it's tempting to stay for the familiar highs and lows. It means you protect your boundaries instead of bending them at the first sign of their interest. It's waking up in the morning and deciding that your peace matters more than their approval. It's saying no to half-hearted love, no to breadcrumb communication, and no to the version of yourself that was willing to settle for it. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. You've been conditioned to chase scraps of connection, so sitting in the fullness of your own space can feel foreign. But slowly you start to see the difference between being alone and being lonely. Alone is spacious. It's freedom. It's breathing room. It's time to rediscover who you are without the constant noise of their hot and cold energy. And here's the unexpected part. Once you truly choose yourself, the pull toward them fades. The late night urge to text disappears. The hope that they'll finally get it quiets down. You stop replaying old memories because you're too busy making new ones that have nothing to do with them. You start building a life that excites you, one that's full enough that the thought of going back to that cycle feels like a step in the wrong direction. The choice to put yourself first ends the chase, but more importantly, it starts something brand new. A chapter where you are the center of your own story. You're no longer defined by the way someone else treated you. You're defined by how you chose to treat yourself. That's the moment you realize you didn't just stop caring about your avoidant ex. You started deeply loving the person staring back at you in the mirror. And that's a bond you'll never want to break. In the end, walking away from the push and pull of an avoidant ex isn't about winning or losing. It's about reclaiming your peace, your power, and your sense of self. It's the moment you stop begging for the bare minimum and start building a life that feels full without them in it. You learn that the silence you once feared can be the space where you grow the most, and that choosing yourself is the ultimate closure. Thank you for listening, and may you always have the courage to protect your peace and honor your worth, no matter who walks in or out of your life.